The Secrets of Stargate is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Stargate, Episode 19.
Janet West, Jackson has identified the seventh symbol.
All right, here we go. We are about to try to make a connection.
All we gotta do is bust out of here, commandeer the ship, and fly on home.
Indeed. You say that a lot.
I know that this could be dangerous. But this is our job, right? It's what we signed on to do.
It was never about going home. It's about getting us to where we're going.
Hi, I'm Jack Barazzini, and you're listening to The Secrets of Stargate, where we talk about the hidden meanings and deeper layers found in the Stargate movies, TV series, and more. Joining me today are Lisa Jones. Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Jack.
And Victor Lambs. Hey, Victor.
Hi, Jack.
And today we are discussing the 19th episode of the first season of SG-1, Tin Man. And Victor, did you want to do a summary for us?
Why, sure, Jack. In this episode, SG-1 gates to P3X-989 and finds themselves in an abandoned underground power station with very cool mood lighting. As they explore the facility, they are zapped unconscious by an energy field. They are awakened by a strange man named Harlan who greets them with a strange greeting and strangely insists he has made them better. Harlan explains that the complex was created 11,000 years ago after the surface of Altair, his planet, was polluted with radiation, and that he needs the team to stay to help keep the lights on. SG-1 gates back to Earth and discovers they are all now robots. Jack is very upset. Daniel and Carter think being robots is cool, though this leads him to some questionable ontological insights. Teal'c is stoic. With their batteries running out, SG-1 travels back to Altair, and as Jack sinks deeper into Marvin the paranoid android levels of depression and existential angst, the underground station sinks deeper into disrepair. Fortunately for Harlan, who is also a robot, the last of the organic civilization which sought to obtain immortality by transferring their consciousness into robots, SG-1 is there to fix it, except for Mecha Teal'c, who goes crazy, attacks Jack, and is disintegrated by Harlan. Whoopsie. Jack catches Harlan in the act of creating a second Robo-Teal'c, version 2 patch nose, removed insanity, and Harlan confesses that their human originals are in fact very safe and can be sent home. After reconciling with their human originals, the SG bots agree to stay behind in Altair to keep the place running. They also vow to bury the gate in order to preserve the security of the SGC.
You know what I have to say to that? Comtrya.
Comtrya! This episode is better, yes? Is better.
Better.
The best I've ever felt. Yeah, I really, really liked this episode.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites too, especially from the first season.
Yeah. It, dealing with all the different kind of existential questions that they're asking. What are your thoughts on the episode, Lisa?
I like it. It's kind of fun. It's like alter egos, but they don't know that they're the alter egos quite yet. You know, it sets up this whole alternate plot line because they don't die. They're stuck there. And we do run into them again. So it's season 4. So lots of it kind of opens that door again to something else.
Yeah, I guess we can just, we're not worrying about spoilers here, but obviously the big twist is that the robot versions of the SG-1 team are not transplants of their consciousness, but in fact copies, which I was kind of expecting they'd go that way / hoping they'd go that way, because that's really the more interesting story way you could do that story. There's actually a game, I don't know if either of y'all play games, it's called Soma, and the plot of the game is you're a person in this underground research facility in the future, and there's this cataclysmic event that happens and you go unconscious, and then you wake up, and through the course of the game you eventually find that your actual human persona is dead and you are a copy that's been put into a robot. And throughout the game there are different points where you cannot continue unless you continue to copy your consciousness into a new robot, and then you have to leave the previous one behind. So it kind of deals with the same kind of question we have here, but that's what it really reminded me of. It's a fun game, especially on like a philosophical level.
Yeah, I'm more of an old school gamer, so this would remind me more of like Geist on the GameCube, where you're a ghost and you jump from body to body or robot to robot, or even the original Half-Life where you had to just bang on things with wrenches, which is what they seem to do a lot in this game.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
But don't you think it's kind of, I don't know, it kind of ends on like a dark, morbid note at the same time?
It does, and let's see, we're about 2 minutes in.
Yeah.
Gotta go track, aren't you?
Drink. Do you guys know the episode Course
Yeah.
Oblivion from Voyager?
No.
So this is an episode that was actually a callback to a previous episode where the entire crew of Voyager is actually these like silicate gel replicants of the previous crew, and they all start degrading when they're in space. And the whole episode, like, everyone is like dematerializing and dying. And then at the very end of the episode, like, Captain Janeway is the only one left, and the Voyager is itself is starting to degrade. And then it just completely like dissolves into this plasma. And the last shot in the episode is the real Voyager coming up and scanning the field and being like, there's some sort of debris field here. We don't know what it is. And then it ends. That's kind of the vibe I got from this, is like you have these replicants of these people who are just kind of left in the lurch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they didn't know they were copies. And so it's almost, you feel it. I mean, you have all, Carter's arguing the science and Daniel Jackson's arguing the existential, theories. And then you have Jack over there who's really ticked off.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like that was the humanity of it, that he had his life stolen in his mind, because he doesn't know he's realize or feel like a copy. So I don't remember thinking that the first time around, but now I'm kind of like, eh.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first time when I watched this years and years ago, I was like, it was more just like very fascinating. It's like, oh, they're robots now. That's really cool. And then plus you have Jay Brazeau as Harlan, who is like, I think their first like outright funny alien that they meet. I'm not sure, there may be others, but he's just like the first played for comic effect. And yet what he does, or what you think he's done to SG-1 for most of the episode, is just so very dark. I mean, the moment where Jack cuts into his arm and like the bishop from Aliens, the goo is leaking out of him, and then he confronts Harlan and he's like, what, this is better, I'm dead. It's I'd be pretty upset too, I think.
Right. I will say, if you are squeamish about like knives or scenes involving flesh being cut, there's kind of a trigger warning here with Jack discovering that he is an android. I really like the body effects in that scene though. Like, I feel like they did a really good job. I'm a huge fan of how 80s movies did really well with like the creature effects and the physical prosthetics, which I feel like in the age of CGI we've kind of lost. Mm-hmm. So it was nice to see that, because I feel like they did a good job with that.
Yeah, never watched Tetsuo the Iron Man, of course. If that makes you, if people turning into robots make you squeamish, but it was kind of amazing. It's like, they're these incredibly human, like lifelike robots, and then when you cut into them, it's pistons and hydraulic cables. So there's kind of like a disconnect in the level of technology there. But if they had shown it, I guess they really couldn't show it like more detailed, machinery inside of them or something. It's kind of like the whole Data positronic brain, another Star Trek reference, where they like peel back his head and there's like, Radio Shack LEDs blinking away in there.
Yeah. But hey, it gets the point across.
Yeah.
It looked a lot like Luke's fake arm from Empire.
Yeah. Empire Strikes Back. Yep. I wonder if they borrowed that.
Possibly. I guess it's kind of a pistons for tendons swap out there. And Victor, I know you were looking up the location where they were filming, and it seems like you found a pretty interesting website. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so this is moviemaps.org, and they seem, fortunately for us, like heavily slanted towards Vancouver locations, which Stargate is definitely one of them. And this was filmed, as was a number of Stargate episodes, at the Port Mann Power Station, which I guess is now a metal recycling plant in Vancouver, but perhaps its most famous use, it's been used in a number of SG-1 episodes, but perhaps most famously, when we do get to episode 4 or season 4, there is a episode that takes place in a Russian Stargate facility, and this doubles as that Russian Stargate facility as well. So we haven't seen the last of this.
I thought you were going to say beneath the surface. Because we really get to see it there.
Yes, we do. Beneath the surface, and then proving ground as well, where it's basically a training facility. So yeah, and it's a very interesting site. You can see all your favorite, Flash or Supergirl or Battlestar Galactica locations, and how these things are used over the years by all these different shows.
Yeah, it's always fun to, like, when you see something that you know what it's from, kind of picking out those little things. Like, they're almost like production Easter eggs that you're not going to pick up on unless you're actually interested in that side of television production.
Yeah, on that note, I happened to be I lived in a town in Michigan where they happened to be shooting Scream 4, and I didn't know they were shooting Scream 4 until I was walking my dog one morning and walked through our little town square, and I saw these huge tents filled with like clothes, racks and racks of clothes and stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, are they having like a tent sale or something here? And then I saw all these police cars marked up with like a different town that I didn't recognize. And then finally I realized, oh yeah, they're shooting a movie here, and they have all these different, police cars with like Westboro, police department written on it and stuff. And it's very cool when you do know the location and then can pick it out in the movie. I still have not seen Scream 4, of course, but
I was about to say, I remember watching that movie and I remember absolutely hating it. So there you go.
Unfortunately, they didn't get me in the background walking Bandit, our dog.
I need to go back and rewatch it and see if I can see Victor with his dog.
That's right.
Yeah, just looking very confused, staring around like, what's going on? But yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of confusing moments in here. But one thing I do really appreciate is the world building that you get of this world, Altair. A dying world, transferred their consciousness into robots. And then you learn that most of the people, either went crazy and had to be deactivated, or just, gave up, went up to the surface of the planet and just walked off and committed suicide. So kudos to Harlan for having them, sheer force of will to keep it together.
See, that's not the way I took that. I almost took it as a more dark, sinister thing. It's like, he's the only one left, and he's telling us what happened to the rest of them. What actually happened to the rest of them? Like, under his very affable, goofy facade, what lies beneath? That's what I'm wondering.
It's a family show.
So they say.
No, Harlan's cool.
Yeah. I do also like, I picked up on this during the episode, but they also mentioned this on the wiki entry, actually, but his name Harlan appears to be a reference to the sci-fi writer Harlan Ellison. He was known for the Star Trek original series episode City on the Edge of Forever. He also wrote the story I Have No Mouth, But I Must Scream, which is a very, very weird, depressing story if you're into that kind of sci-fi. And just the whole vibe I get from this episode definitely feels like something that Harlan Ellison would have wrote. So I wonder if that was a direct connection there. Like that existential kind of horror that's going on.
Yeah, and I think so. And incidentally, the point and click adventure game based on I Have No Mouth, But I Must Scream is much better than the story. But no, it was funny because I watched this with the captions on, and they never refer to Harlan by name in the captions. They just refer to him as capital H and then a period, which is very strange. And whenever he says his alien greeting, it just says, like alien language or greeting in alien language, and they never actually spell it out too, which was, I had the captions on so I could figure out how to spell it, but that was no help.
I think you weren't paying attention because Jack said what it was. It was Kumbaya.
That's right.
Yeah, Kumbaya. They did. Yeah, aloha. Yeah.
It is funny because it seems like it's used kind of like how aloha is used. It means pretty much everything.
Yeah, it's a greeting, exclamation, everything. Yeah.
It was funny. That's how we referred to this episode. When I told them we were watching Tin Man, they couldn't remember which one was Tin Man, and then all of a sudden they were like, "Comtrya!" They're like, "Oh, it's that one."
Nice.
And I think probably the funniest use of that, and it's buried, is when they are, warp core breach imminent, and they have to vent plasma through the conduits and stuff. The computer voice in the background is like, "You have succeeded in venting sufficient, steam. Comtrya."
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
That was a good one. I always like when they do this thing where they use like an industrial facility for an alien planet, watching in the background where you get like, the alien stickers on the wall and the alien text where they've covered things up, but then you see things that are clearly just like, that's just like a hex wrench or like a Phillips head or a flathead, like all these different human things. Like it's fun to pick those kind of things out in that kind of setting.
So like an evolutionary biologist would say there's, an evolutionary advantage or selection, to having, bolts or nuts with, 6 sides or, being a standard size and shape. If you have, a person with, 5 fingers and stuff, you're going to, technology is going to evolve a certain way, I think. Right. I'm just being overly generous probably, but
I mean, I'll take it. It's always fun.
So what do we think about another advanced race, right? Old race, but it doesn't seem to, they don't know the gold, and it doesn't really fit in the rest as we create the timeline going backwards, as the series progresses, we kind of forget they exist. Like, where do they fit? I mean, because they're older. I mean, you stop and think about it. If he's, 11,000 years old?
And that was at the very end, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't really know, but I just was thinking about it, like we're the ancients, and then you've got the Gould, and you've got the Stargates, and who created them, and this kind of seeds before all of that, doesn't it?
Yeah, that is a very good question, and I guess my headcanon would be that these are unascended ancients who tried to, we do run across, the Asurans and stuff later on in Atlantis, and granted they're robots too, who try to ascend, but, for whatever reason they couldn't. So these could have been ancients who, maybe tried to ascend, couldn't, and then as a last shot at immortality, put themselves into robots. So that would be my headcanon at this point. That would kind of fit.
Just thought it was interesting, perplexed, because there's another race that's old, that's technologically advanced, who doesn't know who the Gould are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would wonder, so they have the Stargate right in the middle of this facility, and it seems to be a problem that people are coming through. Like, I kind of imagine if you're kind of on the brink of your societal collapse, if you're putting the Stargate in your underground facility that's running your planet while everyone has to be turned into a robot, why don't you just use the Stargate to go to another planet? That was my biggest issue with this episode. It was like, why is the Stargate there? I guess you could say they didn't know how to dial it, but they had all the equipment, so I'm going to assume they at least had some idea of what was going on.
Oh, that's a good question too. When did the ancients seed the galaxy with Stargates too? Was that over 11,000 years ago? Or did they just like drop in, say, we're just going to put a Stargate in your underground base, see ya,
Right.
Maybe that's where they went with their original bodies and they left their robots there.
That would be a cool story to explore.
Yeah. So let's flip to SGC. So they get back. They think they're them. Again, you've got Janet Fraser being like, everything's fine except for you don't have a heartbeat. And that's kind of cool, except for now I got to draw your blood and then lock them up and then, throw them back through the Stargate.
Well, I mean, Jack did have to convince him to let them go through the Stargate instead of like, SG3 or something.
Right.
Yeah. And it was because he knew, General Hammond's granddaughters were Tessa and Kayla, which is probably his password on his computer there too.
Probably. I did read those are Brad Wright. Those are his daughter's names.
Oh, okay.
That's where the names came from.
I really liked how they handled that whole interaction, though. I think that Jack definitely was actually the least reasonable in terms of how everything was going. Like the way Janet Fraser handled it, the way that Hammond handled it, and the way that both Carter and Daniel responded to it was, hey, we're robots now and we weren't before, so it's reasonable they'd be suspicious of us. And Jack just seems to be like very hard-headed about that kind of thing. He's like, well, I know who I am. That's not the point. They don't know who you are.
And this isn't the first Jack O'Neill duplicate that's come through the gate.
That's true, right? You think he'd remember that and then kind of be like, oh yeah, that's right.
But I guess that was to show us how sure he is that he is the real one. Like they really think that they are themselves. And they didn't even notice. And you think about it, Teal'c didn't even notice he didn't have Junior.
That's true. He's like, oh, I don't actually have him. It's like, how long did it take you to figure that out? And we get Daniel's cold scientific clinical side coming out immediately. Instead of being like, I'm a robot now, this is terrifying. He's like, oh, this is interesting. Let's think about the implications of it. And that's, I get that from like a analytical level, but on like a human level, I feel like you'd be more terrified of that.
Yeah. And
But I
again,
guess it's just his disposition.
and by the end, where Daniel's arguing with Daniel, and they're like, let's solve all of the, philosophical issues.
Yeah.
And then he realizes he's going to be trapped there. And it's like, okay. I'm thinking, wife, still is a ghoul that you wanted to go rescue. But he's kind of forgotten that the last many episodes.
It just makes me think of that scene in Austin Powers where he's like, my wife was a robot. Oh, wait a minute. I'm single again. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you could tell right away that while Daniel may be married, he's not a dad, because the first thing he would have done is actually do the robot dance when he found out he was a robot.
That is true.
Dad jokes.
Yeah. 11,000 going on infinity, I always say. Yeah.
That's right.
I was just gonna say, this whole thing could also be just an allegory of like having a career as well. Like you can leave on vacation, but sooner or later you have to go back to work, or your batteries run down, and they'll stop paying you. And then when you get back, your boss says, "Here's where you belong now. Here's the only place you can be." It's a.
I'm kind of sad for you now. For your work.
I was about to say,
No, it's
that depressing view on that. But yeah, no, I did like. They apparently have the battery life of a 2002 iPod.
Yeah.
Like 2 hours, and you got to plug them back in.
They fixed that in version 2. They do.
Yeah. They get to travel a little bit more. They okay, so the episode being Tin Man, when I looked up that, and I guess I'd never connected the dots. There's a ton of Wizard of Oz references.
Oh, really?
SG-1, Atlantis. I don't know about further, but at least those two shows. I'll have to pull it. It was on a website, and they had all these different quotes. We're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff that we've heard already so far in season 1. But I couldn't find why. Is it just because Wizard of Oz is such a common, everybody knows it? Or did someone who's making the show have a connection to it?
Yeah. Well, it does explain why playing Dark Side of the Moon, every time I watch an episode, it actually lines up perfectly. So.
And explains all those scenes in Atlantis too, where the talking trees are throwing apples at the cast and stuff.
Flying.
I think it's because, it's up, the age of the people writing the show at the time, that was a cultural touchstone for 50 years. And if you grew up and you had like 3 TV channels, Wizard of Oz was something that would be playing a lot. And
That's true.
There weren't a lot of kids movies, at the time. We didn't have this whole animation industry that we have now. And so Wizard of Oz, I think it would just be part of the lexicon of everybody writing fiction at the time.
Mm-hmm. You're right about that. I mean, everybody knows Follow the Old Brick Road, or at least over a certain age, so yeah, I just thought it was interesting because once I started reading through the quotes, I was like, oh my gosh, but I hadn't put it together before now.
So it's similar to how if you look in Star Trek, there's a lot of oblique references to Buckaroo Banzai.
Oh, really?
Remember that movie?
Yeah. I remember the movie. I didn't know that Star Trek, like the new shows, had picked
There's
up on
a
that.
lot. It's in the old series. Like there's even a scene in Deep Space Nine where there's like a watermelon just on a desk randomly.
Oh,
as
nice.
a homage to that movie. Yeah. Like there's a lot of references to that.
What's that watermelon doing here? I'll tell you later.
Yeah,
sorry.
Well, in a couple of seasons, we're going to get a lot of Simpsons references.
Yes.
In Stargate.
Dope.
Yeah.
Nice.
We even get a Simpson actor as well.
Nice. That's awesome.
A little crossover. Yeah. Oh, no.
I was going to say, did you have any other additional thoughts on this episode, Lisa?
Oh. Yeah, I one more time, Carter got the whole, you're a female, with like creepy giggle. little Harlan giggle. It was awkward and icky.
Yeah.
It made me worry. And then she wakes up in different clothes, and you're like, that was weird. I didn't like that.
And Harlan kept referring to Teal'c as different. He is different, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, don't go there, dude.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
That was a little weird. Other than that, the other thing I found when I was looking this up is there is an album on Amazon Music, the best of Stargate SG-1 music by Joel Goldsmith.
Oh, nice.
So you can go Amazon Music, which I don't subscribe to, so I couldn't listen without paying, but it's out there.
Oh,
that's pretty cool.
And speaking of the music here, when Teal'c does go nuts and attack Jack, we do get the return of the the Gould, menacing Gould theme, the da 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 da, as he's like doing that, and so it's cool. We get to get that back, even though there's no actual Gould in that scene, because Teal'c's a robot and doesn't have a little robot symbiote, which would have been cool to see. But no, there's a lot. I did appreciate Harlan basically fixing the pipes with Flex Seal, walking around. That's a lot of damage, and those little plumber's putty and stuff that he puts on there. So I appreciated
what he got there. With Carter's probably gonna revolutionize the whole place, and
oh yeah, get one
make it
neck with
all
a generator.
efficient. And then you've got Teal'c with all the muscle, being able to do everything.
They also never explain why they have to be in that building to be powered up. Like, I almost feel like a better solution would have been whatever power source you need, let's take it with us, and then everyone can leave.
Yeah, they do say that like the power that the facility generates has is what's powering them, and there's this sphere of power influence that they're trapped within.
Yeah, it's like that wireless charger. I gotta set my iPhone on just right, or it's not gonna.
Oh
charge.
yeah.
Did you see how excited Carter was when she saw a computer?
Yes.
Yeah, and the NEC monitor on it that just happened to be covered with duct tape, so you couldn't see the NEC logo on it. And
we noticed that at our house too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Radio Shack parts right there on that desk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, before we go, we'd like to cover some fantastic feedback that we have received. This is from Suzanne Braun, aka Hathor herself. She says, "Really fun podcast, guys. I love the fact that you thought I looked like Jessica Rabbit too. Boom. And might we remind you, we are a goddess and a system lord, so we always get our own way." And I think that is just absolutely the best statement I have ever heard. I can't think of anything.
I can't think of any better feedback either. And I was the one who made the comment, and I just feel horrible about it. I was completely wrong, especially since, Suzanne Brown is the one who won the South America's Most Beautiful Woman in 1993. And Jack, did you know that she was born on February 29th? She's a leap year baby. I mean, how awesome is that?
Oh my goodness.
And we got feedback from her.
That episode should have been done all female episode. Look at y'all. It's even through the airwaves. Y'all are getting all that pheromones coming in.
But she sang on the Goldfish hit song all night, and that was like 11 weeks and #1 on the charts. I mean, come on, guys. Can you not see?
It's the #1 episode of Stargate. Honestly, I think we can just end the podcast after that.
But seriously, how cool was that?
That was very cool.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
On Twitter. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, Suzanne Braun, for giving your feedback on that. It's really cool to hear from the actual actors who are on the show. We have a great time with it, and we really appreciate that.
Absolutely, yeah. It's an honor to to have these people who we enjoy their work so much. We enjoy these episodes. Sometimes we kid, but it's done with affection. We love this show, and we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't love the show. And so, thank you so much for taking the time to provide your feedback. We appreciate it, and like I said, it's a great honor for us.
Yeah,
most definitely.
All right, and before we go, we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Secrets of Stargate, including Elizabeth T., Carrie B., Jason E., James I., and Adam S. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Stargate and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Be sure to follow the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or on the SQPN YouTube channel. To find previous episodes of Secrets of Stargate and to send feedback, please visit sqpn.com/Stargate. You can email us at stargate@sqpn.com or follow StarQuest on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia or on Twitter at sqpn.com. You can also join the StarQuest fan club mailing list by texting StarQuest to 66866. Send StarQuest to 66866. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the next episode of SG-1, There But For the Grace of God. Until then, Lisa Jones, thank you in joining me in sharing the Secrets of Stargate.
Thanks, Jack.
And Victor Lambs, thank you as well.
Thank you, Jack. I'm feeling much, much better.
And once again, I'm Jack Barazzini. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Stargate on StarQuest.
Anyway, I'm sorry, but that just happens to be how I feel about it. What do you think?
Comtrya!